There are four principles in life that all of us have to fulfill, and those four principles are based on the four purusharthas, which, my friends, are simple for every one of us to understand, and we would have heard several times before. They are the dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. These are the four things every one of us must base our life on. Dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Once we based our life on these four principles, my friends, we would have lived a fulfilling existence in this world. Now, if I were to ask you all, what is the meaning of dharma? Dharma is translated as righteousness. But the greatest righteousness, my friends, is simply fulfilling our duties in life. And once everybody live up to the principle of fulfilling their duties in life, then dharma will never fall. You see, how many pillars this house has? How many pillars? Probably 4 and 4 and 4 and 4, right? According to the width and according to the length of the house, that is determined, the engineer would determine how many pillars will hold the structure up. So friends, if every pillar do what it has to do, the building will stand. If one of those pillars or one of the beam that is supposed to hold the building up starts giving way, then what happens? The whole structure will become weaker. And when the structure becomes weak, then the building can fall at any point in time. So all the pillars must be strong and must be living up to what they are supposed to be doing. So like that, my friends, in our life, the four purusharthas, meaning dharma, that every one of us must try to live up to the principles of what we are supposed to do in life. Now, first thing, when we were born, when we were in the mother's womb, we were there growing as a fetus, and then suddenly after 9 months, we were born. And suddenly, right? Suddenly after 9 months, we were born. And once we were born, we became either a son or a daughter. Either or. So immediately, from that moment, we're supposed to start living like a son and living like a daughter. Isn't it? So we gave joy to our parents at that level. And then we grew up and we became teenagers and then to adults, etc. And like that, our duties continue. Then we became a student. From a student, we have a duty towards ourselves and our education. I tell you something. Education, my friends, is one of the most important aspects of our lives. So education is the key and the foundation for the rest of our life. So once we go to school, once we have an education, then we would have created a good foundation to get married. So the qualification to get married is education. Isn't it? Long ago, in Mama days, Mama, how old are you now? Jai Bhagwan. Mama is 75 years old. I remember, when she called and she wanted to put the date for this year. And I said, Mama, where are you living? But I could hear from her voice that she's, a little bit elderly person. So I said, Mama, where are you from? She said, Baba, Rio Claro, Lazari. She said, I'm coming to meet you. I said, Mama, don't come. Just tell me when you want. She said, no, Baba, I come in. And she traveled from here to San Fernando by the library corner, from library corner to where I live. And not only once, she wanted to do it twice, and I stopped her the second time. To let her know that it was all okay. My friends, the point that we make, education is so very important. that it creates a foundation for us. It is not the qualification to get married, but in the days of Mama, what was the qualification? Who can tell me what was the qualification? You want to marry? Once you want to get married, I'm talking about a long time. Once you want to get married, long time. You could sew? Yes. You could wash? Yes. You could cook? Yes. Okay, you're ready to get married. It was a qualification, long time. Now, the young girls have more degrees and the young boys, and that's why boys have to be very careful, because the girls are looking for educated young boys. So you have to advance. We have to advance ourselves, the young boys and young girls together. Once we have that education, then, my friends, we have a foundation. With the foundation, that is called dharma. The dharma of the student is to study. The dharma of the young son is to... What's the dharma of the son? Son is related to parents. So, the dharma of the son is to look after the parents. The dharma of the daughter is to look after the parents. The dharma of the daughter who becomes a wife is to look after the husband. The daughter of the son who becomes a husband is to look after the wife. Then both of them becomes parents, and the dharma of the dharma of the young parents is to look after their children. When we go to work, the dharma of the employee is to look after the employer and the business. According to our job description, we fulfill our job and we work according to our job description. That is fulfilling dharma. Friends, so dharma is not a big Hindu word. Dharma is not a big Hindu word that when we hear the word dharma, we say, oh my God, that is some big word. I'm scared to be a Hindu. Dharma simply means doing your duty in life. That is dharma. And when we are able to fulfill our duties in life, friends, we are living religion. And you see, whether a person is a Hindu, a Christian, a Muslim, an Indian, it doesn't matter. Everybody who do their duty in life or duties in life, they are living a life of dharma. And if we refuse to live our life, or if we refuse to fulfill our duty, friends, or duties in life, then the result of that is we will be as if destroying dharma. That is why, friends, when a marriage fails, when a young couple get married and their marriage fails, is because of one of several reasons. And one of the reasons might be where one of the person in the marriage or in the relationship refuses to perform his or her duty in the relationship. Can't stand. The marriage would not stand. All the physical attraction. You can put on all the jewelry you want. You can put on all the makeup you want. You can do the best hairstyle you want. You can put on the best eyelashes you want. You can put on the best bangles you want. You can have rings in all the fingers. But if we do not fulfill the duty of the wife as a wife, or you do not fulfill the duty of a husband, friends, the relationship can't work. Physical attraction is not that which will make the relationship work. Physical attraction might be the first thing. You see somebody, you fall in love with their beauty. Isn't it? You see somebody, you find that person attractive or handsome, you fall in love with that, but then what will sustain the relationship afterwards is not the physical beauty. Because if beauty or handsomeness is to make the marriage work, a lot of beautiful and handsome people would have been married today. It have many beautiful people and many handsome guys, many beautiful girls and handsome guys who got married and divorced. So the beauty is not that which makes the marriage work. What makes the marriage work, my friends, is the dharma in the marriage. You see, I can't love you and boss you around, isn't it? I can't love somebody and be a dictator in the relationship. I can love somebody and stalk them. Yeah? Which means you have no trust. I can't love someone and all the time in the person's face, not giving them a space. We mix up face with space, isn't it? If you're not on the phone WhatsApping, you're texting. If you're not texting, you FaceTiming. Yeah, FaceTime? It has something like that then? Oh. So you FaceTime. So which means you always know in the person's face. And then you say, I love you so much, I always want to see you in my face. And the person saying, oh God, get out of my face. Get lost. So in other words, you push the person away instead of keeping them close to you. You see, dharma means, my friends, if we want the relationship to work, it has to be where we do our duty to the best of our ability with understanding, with love, with compassion, with empathy. And when we put all these into the relationship, dharma will stand. The relationship will be successful. What is the dharma of a devotee? The dharma of a devotee is to be devotional. The dharma of a devotee is to love the Lord. The dharma of a devotee is to go to the temple, do seva. The dharma of a devotee is to chant the Lord's name and speak positive things all the time, giving the message of the Lord all the time wherever he or she goes. That is what a devotee does. A devotee have no time for gossip. A devotee have no time to bash anyone. A devotee has no time for ill speaking or bringing down the character of anyone. A devotee, my dear friends, will not waste time in the wrong channels of thinking or words or action. A devotee would live with love all the time. That is the dharma of a devotee. So the dharma of a devotee, I might be living in the temple. A Christian person might be living in the church. A Muslim person might be living in the mosque. But you're living inside here, but your intention is not good. Then the dharma that is supposed to sustain that person as a devotee of the Lord, that dharma has fallen. Friends, understand this word dharma. It is very, very important. The dharma of a devotee is to live with love and to chant the Lord's name and to spread the message of God everywhere. And you know, that is why WhatsApp is a good thing. Isn't it? Because every morning or during the day, you always get beautiful messages where people forward to you saying, have a divine morning, God bless you, the sun is rising, I see the divine in you, and send wonderful things. That is what devotees do. Devotees send loving messages, blessings every moment, reminding us of who we are. Hey, I am going to send this blessing to all my loved ones. That is what a devotee does. So the dharma of a devotee is to send the message of love all the time in words and action. But you see, sometimes you forward a message and you send, have a pleasant morning, a beautiful day, God bless you, I love you. And then when you see the person face to face, Narayan, Narayan. So on the phone, we're sending wonderful messages, but when we see the person face to face, we have a frown on our face. Brothers and sisters, the word dharma means that we have to uplift ourselves. You know, one of the theme songs of the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha, you know, we have recently lost our Shri Dharmacharya ji, Shri Pandit Uttam ji Maharaj. And this would have been an appropriate and beautiful song that they would always sing. Kaho ek baar hai mitro, Sanatan Dharma ki jai ho. Kaho ek baar hai mitro, Sanatan Dharma ki jai ho. Sanatan Dharma. It's the eternal duty of life. And when we are able, friends, to maintain our duties in all different aspects, then who can tell me what will happen? I want to ask the young people, when you fulfill your duties in life, what will happen? What do you think? What do you all think? When you fulfill your duties in life, what will happen? Let us say, for example, as a husband, you are the best. As a wife, you are the best. As an employee, you are the best. Let us just take that example. As an employee, you are the best at work. What happens? Very good. You will climb the ladder of promotion very quickly because you will be observed by your seniors and you will be promoted. Naturally, your pay will increase, I hope. Isn't it? Naturally, your pay will increase because you are doing your duty. Go to work and sit down behind the desk, and when the boss not there, man here, or she here, I could lie here a little bit. And see what will happen. You see, duty, when it is fulfilled, we always will prosper. And you know what? Be attentive. When you are doing your duty, there will be many people who will try to obstruct you from doing your duty and will try to put spokes in the wheel of your promotion. But never stop. Never stop doing your duty, or never be distracted by the spokes in the wheel. My friends, if you become distracted, you will not be able to reach where you are going. But if you stay focused, pause for a moment, take out the spokes from the wheel, and continue riding, my friends, you will certainly reach where you're going. And the result of that will be what? उत जाग मुसाफिर भोर भये अब रैन कहा जो सोवत है. The result will be that we the travelers will be awakened. Ut jag musafir. And ab rain kaha jo sowat hai. We will not be sleeping. We will be arise and we will be awakened from the slumber of ignorance of our duty and our dharma. My friends, my first wish for Mama tonight, and my first wish for her children and grandchildren and all the devotees who are here, all those who are on Facebook or on Sanket TV, we pray that may Bhagwan Krishna bless us tonight, that we all can उत जाग मुसाफिर भोर भये अब रैन कहा जो सोवत है. जागत है सो पावत है, जो सोवत है सो पोवत है. उत जाग मुसाफिर भोर भये अब रैन कहा जो सोवत है. नींद से आके कौन जरा और अपने ईश से ध्यान लगा. ओ तुक नींद से आके कौन जरा और अपने ईश से ध्यान लगा. यह प्रीत करन की प्रीत नहीं, प्रभु जागत है तो सोवत है. उत जाग मुसाफिर भोर भये अब रैन कहा जो सोवत है. आज करना है अब कर ले, जो कल करना है आज कर ले, जो आज करना है अब कर ले. My friends, this line says, when do we have to do our duty? जो कल करना है आज कर ले. Don't postpone your duty for tomorrow. Do it today. Whatever good is to be done, friends, do it today. जो कल करना है आज कर ले, जो आज करना है अब कर ले. And whatever is to be done today, in the name of duty, do it now. जो कल करना है आज कर ले, जो आज करना है अब कर ले. जब चिड़ियन ने चुग के तलिया फिर पछताए क्या होवत है. उठ जाग मुसाफिर भोर भये, अब रैन कहाँ जो सोवत है. नादान भगत करनी अपनी, है पापी पाप में चैन कहाँ. ओ नादान भगत करनी अपनी, है पापी पाप में चैन कहाँ. जब पाप की गठरी शीश धरी, फिर शीश पकड़ रोवत है. उठ जाग मुसाफिर भोर भये, अब रैन कहाँ जो सोवत है. जो जागत है सो पावत है, जो सोवत है जो होवत है. Jaga Musafir. So friends, the bhajan is telling that we have to arise, we have to awaken from the slumber of ignorance and perform our duty. And you might be asking why we are talking about the four purusharthas, dharma, arth, kama and moksha. And the four purusharthas begins with dharma, arth, kama. When we perform our duty, we're going to get promotion. So naturally, our desires will be fulfilled. Then wealth will come, and then we'll be free from bondage. In the same way, my friends, Bhagwan Krishna, as a matter of fact, the Bhagavad Gita comes between the 25th and the 42nd chapter of the Mahabharata. That portion of the Mahabharata is called as Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita begins, the very first word that Dhritarashtra, who was a blind man, a blind king, the very first word that he uttered was dharma. And it is recorded in the Bhagavad Gita. It is recorded that him asking the question, Dhritarashtra uvacha, dharma kshetre, kurukshetre, samaveta yutsavaha, mamakaha pandavaha, mamaka pandavaschaiva, Kim kurvat Sanjaya. He is speaking to Sanjaya. And he is asking this question. Please tell me, O Sanjaya, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all the armies gathered, what you call Samaveta Yutsavaha, they are gathered to fight each other. But Tayena, Mamakaha, what did my sons and Pandavaha means the sons of my brother, King Pandu. Tell me, they gathered in two armies ready to fight each other. Kim, what? Akurvat, did they do? Please tell me, what did they do, O Sanjaya, when they have gathered on this battlefield for war? Friends, it is very interesting to note that Dhritarashtra was not only physically blind. Can anyone tell me what was the name of the wife of the blind king Dhritarashtra? Anyone knows? Huh? Very good. Gandhari. Gandhari was the wife of the blind king Dhritarashtra. You're going to the Hindu school in Reclaro. Very good. Mama is about 50 years old. She says she's going to Reclaro Hindu school. So, Gandhari, now be very attentive. Friends, Dhritarashtra was blind. He was born blind. And when he was about to get married, and she, that is Gandhari Devi, was chosen for him to be his bride, you know what she decided to do? She decided that if my husband can't see, I do not want to enjoy what he can't see, so I am going to blindfold my eyes also. So, she put on a blindfold so that she will not be able to see as well. Now, what do you all think about that? That's a good thing or not a good thing? What do you say, Papa? A good thing? What do you say, Mama? Mama, Papa say it's a good thing. What do you say? See, Mama fixed him up one time, you know. Next, Mama in the back, yellow. What do you think, Mama? Is that a good thing or not? Good? You know what I think? It's my opinion. I think if the husband was blind, the wife should not have blindfolded her eyes so that she would have been his eyes. And she would have been able to guide him and help him and look after him, isn't it? Not because he's blind, she wanted to get blind or not see what, but she had a point. And the point was, if my husband can enjoy the beauty of this flower, I don't want to enjoy it. I want him to enjoy with me, and I want to enjoy what he's enjoying. But my opinion and my point of view is, if the husband could not see, she should have left her eyes open so she would have been able to see and guide the husband. That would have been a logical thing to do. But they had 100 sons to take care of them. Okay, so we're going there just now, Mama. Huh? And he was blind. Now she blindfolded herself, and both of them could not see. And like Didi said, they were blessed to have 100 sons. And naturally, the sons would have been able to take care of them. That's what I think that's the point you're making. That the sons will look after them. Now, that's well and good. But let us analyze carefully now. Let us think carefully. A person can be blind in different ways. Now, do you believe how many eyes you have? You have 2 eyes? How many eyes you have? 3 eyes? I have 4. I have 4 eyes. So we all have 3 eyes, isn't it? We agree that. We have 2 biological eyes and we have a spiritual eye. So then I have 5 then. 2 biological, spiritual, and so we all have 3 eyes. It is said, Tridalam Trigunakaram Trinetram Triyuayusham Trijanma Papasamharam Ekabilvam Shivarpanam. Trinetra. Lord Shiva has 3 eyes. That's a beautiful, that's from the not Linga Ashtakam, sorry, the Bilva Ashtakam. Trinetra. Trinetra meaning 3 eyes. Now friends, a person can be able to see in different ways. I can see by God's blessing, biologically. I can see the objective world, the colors and the form. I can see the beauty of the world. There are some people, unfortunately, they can't see that because they are blind. And we pray for them tonight. Some people, their spiritual eye can see, and they can see what you and I cannot see. So the people with the spiritual eye that is open, they can see something beyond what you and I can perceive in this world, because their spiritual eye is open. What the biological eyes can see, the spiritual eye cannot see. And what the spiritual eye can see, the biological eyes cannot see. So the spiritual eye can perceive the spiritual world, the spiritual realm, the heart, the atma, the soul, the divine consciousness. The spiritual eye can help identify with that oneness with ourselves. Now, friends, a person who is blind spiritually, meaning their spiritual eye cannot see, they will doubt and they will argue about the spiritual things, that it cannot be real. They will doubt the spiritual things because they can't see it and experience it. So when it is given, they will doubt the fact that spiritual things exist. The spiritual world exists. And that is why, from a Hindu perspective and from a Hindu point of view, my friends, we believe as Hindus, because of the sight of the third eye, God is in every single object of this world. God is in every being of this world. God is in every religion of this world. Call that God Hindu God, Muslim God, Christian God, Baptist God, Jehovah God, oh God, it doesn't matter. God is God because from the Hindu perspective, my spiritual eyes tell me that my God is everywhere. But when the spiritual eye is blind, which means I don't see that. Isn't it? When the spiritual eye is blind, I don't see that. So therefore, what we have to do, we have to get a spiritual surgery done on our spiritual eye, remove the cataract that is affecting the spiritual eye, allow it to see clearly, and then, my friends, we will have a clear vision of the spiritual world and the spiritual experiences. Now, let us go further. Just like the biological eyes can see and the physical, spiritual eye can see, in the same way, the mind experiences emotions, good emotions and bad emotions. In the same way, the intellect will experience knowledge and experience ignorance. That is why we try to seek knowledge, because knowledge helps us to open these eyes. When we are ignorant, we keep the eyes shut and we expect to see. Therefore, education is very important. Religious education, academic education, both are important. Now the point is, my friends, tell me something, and I want you all to be the judge. Let us go back to Dhritarashtra, and as Mama said, his 100 sons. When, God forbid, if a person is physically blind, will that person be comfortable or not? Yes or no? Not comfortable, right? If a person is spiritually blind, will that person be comfortable or not? Comfortable or not? Not. Isn't it? Can't be comfortable. If a person is emotionally blind, can that person be comfortable or not? Not. If a person is intellectually blind, can that person be comfortable or not? Not comfortable. My friends, that was Dhritarashtra, the blind king. He was not only a physically blind person, he was a spiritually blind person. He was a mentally or emotionally blind person, and he was an intellectually blind person. Imagine, that is the man sitting on the throne of Hastinapur, ready to govern the kingdom of Hastinapur. Imagine you have somebody like that as the head of your home. The person as the head of the home is physically not blind, can see, but spiritually blind, mentally blind, intellectually blind. I was looking at the news, was it, I don't know, sometime in a couple days, or I don't know if it was this morning, time is going so fast, where a young man, 30 years old, raped his 3-year-old daughter. That's world news. Happened, I think yesterday or today or something like that. 30 years old, and he raped his 3-year-old daughter. Now tell me, my friends, is he blind or is he dead? His mind has to be absolutely dead, where there is no emotion, there is no feeling. And the excuse is, he was drunk, he was under the influence of alcohol. Yeah, big lie. Big excuse. You see, when we are sick, when the mind is sick, my friends, we'll make all the excuses and we will conclude with, I'm just only human, I take a little drink and I couldn't control myself. Brothers and sisters, ut jaga musafir, bhor bhaye, ab rain kaha jo sowat hai. The time has come for us to awaken. But you see, there are many people, they are awake, but their eyes are closed. They don't want to see. There are many people who are sleeping and their eyes are open. You all heard what I just said? Heard what I said? There are many people who are awake, but their eyes are closed. Physical eyes. And there are many people who are sleeping, but their eyes open. That's a beautiful thought. Somebody should write it down. And ask yourself every day, am I awake with my eyes closed, or am I asleep with my eyes open? If you see somebody sleeping with their eyes open, that's not a nice scene, No, sometimes people sleep with their eyes open. Like we also, me too. Our eyes open, we are sleeping. Friends, we have to open our eyes. But don't just open it, see. Open your spiritual eyes and see. Open the mind and the emotion, feel. We have to learn to feel again. And how to do this? Tulsidashi tells in the Ramayana, in a very beautiful chaupai, he says, a very common one as well. Shri Rama Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Shri Rama Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Shri Rama Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. भावनाय अमंगलहारी द्रवहु सुदशरथ अचिर विहारी अचिर विहारी राम अचिर विहारी मंगल भावनाय मंगलहारी everyone बोलो श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम So, this blind king Dhritarashtra, my friends, he asked in the very first word, very first verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. Now, against this background, my friends, I will tell you the reason why Dhritarashtra asked this question. Like I said, he was physically blind, emotionally blind, intellectually blind, spiritually blind. And you might ask, how do you know if he was spiritually blind? Can anyone tell me? How do you know if someone is spiritually blind? We can say, if a person is physically blind, they can't see. If a person is mentally blind, they can't feel. They have no feelings. You see, like the kind of criminal activities happening, people have no feelings no more. No feelings. You know, you say something and no regrets, no emotions. Mental blindness. Intellectual blindness means we're just ignorant. How do you know if somebody is spiritually blind? Anybody? By their actions? See, people in balcony are answering most of the question. How do you know if somebody is spiritually blind? Mama said actions. What do you say, babe? In pink. Actions also. Again, my opinion. A person who is spiritually blind will not be able to understand and experience Ishavasya sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bunjitaha magradakasya sudhanam. My opinion is based on this verse of the Ishavasya Upanishad that says Ishavasyamidam sarvam. Isha means God. Ishavasya idam sarvam. That God is in every single thing and being in this world. And if a person is not able to see God in everything and being of the world, that person is spiritually blind. Because you don't see God. You're not seeing God even though He is there. Sometimes people ask the question, they say, but Baba, how you would see God? Would you see Lord Krishna with the Basuri standing up somewhere under a tree? Is that what you want to see God as? Or do you see Sri Ram with the bow and arrow ready to kill Ravan? Because when you talk about God, that is what I imagine to see God. Or would I look and see in the sky Hanumanji flying over my house one day? When you say see God, what do you mean? Friends, in order to see and experience God, we look for the beautiful things in society. We look for the beautiful things of our home, our communities, our nation. Look for the beautiful things. And that is the manifestation of God. And like recently I had the flood, all in St. Helena and all about, and Pinal, Debe, all about, had flood. And you see how people came together? That is the manifestation of God through kindness. That's how the Lord comes in those forms. So a person who is spiritually blind, friends, can't see the goodness and the God in the good things that happens in the world. That is why, again, I can safely say, when it comes to Hinduism, my friends, we can see God in all religion without condemning or criticizing. Unfortunately, some religion can't do that. And therefore, Bhagwan, in the Bhagavad Gita, rather, it begins with this word, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre. Now, I was going to tell you why Dhritarashtra asked this question. Against what background that he suddenly asked this question. Now, I want to ask you all a question before. Remember, the Bhagavad Gita comes in the Mahabharata from the 25th chapter to the 42nd chapter. Right? So before that, the first 25 chapters of the Mahabharata, what happened? And why is it from the 25th chapter, the Bhagavad Gita was born? Gita Jayanti is coming up on this month, sometime soon. Gita Jayanti. So, how come suddenly from the 25th chapter, the Bhagavad Gita was born? And the Mahabharata war lasted for 18 days. I want you all to remember these numbers. The Mahabharata war lasted for 18 days. But the Bhagavad Gita was given only on the 10th day. Not from the first day, no. The 10th day. And that is the question I want to ask you all. Why? Why not from the first day? Why the 10th day? Anybody can tell? Balcony. House. Pit. I will tell you. Why it was given on the 10th day? Because, my friends, before that, I would not be able to go into the whole 25 chapters of that part. I just go into that 10-day period. In those 10 days, Arjuna was very excited to fight because he wanted to protect dharma and protect duty. And then when he went, he told Lord Krishna, he said, Sena yobar ubayor madhye ratam stapayumechita. Put my chariot in the middle of the battlefield and let me see who can fight with me, who is so dear to fight with me. And when Lord Krishna put the chariot in the middle of the battlefield, he placed it in front of the people that Arjuna loved the most. He saw his uncles, his nephews, his grandfather, his great-great-great-grandfather, Bhishma Pitamaha. He saw Dronacharya, he saw Kripacharya, he saw all the great gurus and all the great people that he would honor and respect and worship. But you know where he saw them? He saw them on the opposite side. He didn't see them on his side. He saw them on the opposite side, the side of adharma. And when Arjuna saw that, he became very much emotionally upset. And he put down the Gandiva bow. He dropped it on the ground. Arjuna started to cry. And he said, Krishna, it doesn't make any sense fighting this war. It is better I die than to fight this war. Arjuna wanted to commit suicide. He went into a state of depression. He went into a state of what you call influenced by suicidal tendencies. And it shows that when people go through situations in life, when loved ones stand up against you, people go into depression. And depression is a deadly disease, my friends, of the mind. Depression is a real thing. And you cannot imagine how many people right now in our country are depressed. So many people are losing their jobs. Some people are having family problems. Some people are having financial problems. Some people do not know how to make ends meet at the end of the month when the bills were to come. Depression is a real thing. Sometimes wives are being abused by the husband. She is depressed and there's nobody to talk to. And if she finally talks to somebody and the husband find out, he want to kill and he want to shoot. Sometimes the husband going through depression and he can't talk to his own wife. Then what is the use? What is the use? You can't talk to the person you love. And that's why depression is becoming a real thing, my friends. Sometimes teenagers, children are depressed and they refuse to talk to their parents. Or they don't feel comfortable talking to their parents. And that's why we as parents must reach out to them in whatever way. Sometimes you reach out and they still hide it. Sometimes parents reach out and the children still cover it up. So Arjuna went into a state of depression. And friends, that is when he went into that state of depression. Bhagwan Krishna started counseling him. And the counseling that Lord Krishna gave to Arjuna was on the 10th day of this Mahabharat war. But one may ask the question, why did Dhritarashtra ask this question on the 10th day? In the beginning of the war, as a matter of fact, in the beginning, why did he ask this question? Because, my friends, Mamakaha Pandavaha, tell me, what did my sons and the sons of my brother do on the battlefield? Brothers and sisters, this man, Dhritarashtra, who was blind, he didn't care about the sons of his brother. All he cared about was my sons. And you see that word my? That's a deadly word. You see, when this microphone is mine, don't touch it. You see, if this land is mine, don't put your foot in it. You see, my this and my that and my the next, and I am this and I am that and I am the next. You see those two words, I and my? People who have those two words that makes it very strong in their life, my and my, they're bound to cry. Bound to cry. Their life, their living are crying. And that's why even on the phone, you have these emojis, we're crying and thing. I even don't like to send that. And I don't like to see it. I don't like to see people crying. Crying face all the time. Why not happy face? Why not be happy for whatever reason? Why not be happy all the time? Once you send that emoji that you are crying or you're sad, you're putting that in your mind. You're planting the seed in the soil of your mind. Dhritarashtra, on the 10th day of the Mahabharat war, when he realized that the person who he was depending on to win the war, when he realized that person was shot and was lying on the bed of arrows, and his hope now was dwindling, that is when he asked the question, Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samavetayutsavaha. So 10 days prior to this war was going on. But Dhritarashtra, seeing his son winning, now right, everything going good, man. But from the moment he saw that the son's life was threatened now, quickly he asked Sanjaya, what happened, boy? Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samavetayutsavaha mamakaha pandavaha. Before, he didn't care because his sons were winning. But when he saw the person, Bhishma Pitamaha, who they were depending on to win this war, when he saw him fell on the 10th day, that is when Dhritarashtra's eyes opened. And as if he started to see one time. See conveniently. Friends, Dhritarashtra asks Sanjaya, tell me what happened on this Kurukshetra. So imagine, right? This war going on all the time. But you're not bothered because everything going good for you. But from the time he realized Bhishma Pitamaha fell, and that is the person they were depending on to win this war, my friends, that is when Dhritarashtra's eyes opened and he started to see one time, he started to feel. Friends, can I ask you all a question? Baba, you have been doing that whole night. Where's the difference now? Friends, do we have to wait for something to open, something to happen rather, for us to open our eyes? Do we have to wait for something to happen to open our eyes? Let us not wait for something to happen. I was talking to someone some time ago, probably a couple of years ago, and the person told me, he said, Baba, by God's grace, I have everything in life, Everything in life. God bless me and I have everything. But now, I have lost one of the most beautiful person in my life. I have lost one of the most beautiful person in my life. And Baba, now my eyes open. Now my eyes open. Now I realize that all that I have doesn't really make sense. Now that my wife has gone, it doesn't make sense, Baba. I don't care for anything. I feel like now it's only God I need. Do we wait for something to happen? And I'm just using that as an example, friends. Don't, God forbid, don't wait for something to happen for the eyes to open to see what are your duties and what are our dharma in life. On this, the first night of this yajna, may Bhagwan Krishna bless Mama, her children and grandchildren, and all of us, that we can live up to the principles of our duty in life and not become the victim of ignorance. Because, friends, if we do not fulfill the first one, dharma, a beautiful thought just came to my mind. If we cannot fulfill the first purushartha, which is dharma, we cannot enjoy the last one, which is moksha. If we cannot fulfill the first one, we can't enjoy the last one. They all are linked to each other. Dharma is first, arth is second, dharma, arth, kama is third, and moksha is fourth. You can't jump from dharma to moksha. You have to go down the road. Dharma, when you perform your duties in life, when we perform our duties, I include myself. Dharma, artha. Then we are going to get artha, which is wealth. Then from artha, we're going to get kama. Kama will be fulfilled. And then when kama is fulfilled, you're going to get moksha, freedom. But let us not wait for something to happen for our eyes to see. Brothers and sisters, I wish every one of us can see beyond these two eyes.